Net neutrality is under threat in a big way in the US. Now, if you don't know what net neutrality is, the simplest explanation is net neutrality is keeping the internet the way it currently is, open and free from government interference. Now, if you want to see some great coverage on what's happening in the US with net neutrality, check out the Humanist Report. Mike has done such a fantastic job breaking down the stories that I don't think there's anything left for me to say on the topic, at least as it relates to the US. But when it comes to Canada, we are now actually facing our own threat to net neutrality, when we thought we were sort of in the clear. Because this past April, the CRTC, which is the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission, voiced its renewed support of net neutrality, saying that they believe it is important that all Canadians have access to choice, innovation, and free exchange of ideas. But now there's set to be a new push against net neutrality by massive corporations within Canada. So Canada Land are the ones that broke the story, where they obtained documents that reveal a plan to create a not-for-profit corporation responsible for maintaining a blacklist of alleged pirate sites. According to a draft proposal to the CRTC, Bell is leading a coalition of these companies that intends to push the telecom regulator to create the not-for-profit corporation that will maintain this list of websites it had determined were peddling pirated materials, and force all internet service providers in the country to block access to them. The new corporation will be called the Internet Piracy Review Agency. Michael Geist, a University of Ottawa law professor and internet policy expert, says the proposal goes well beyond anything he's seen before. This is a dramatic shift. This is a prospect of significant internet regulation being done by the CRTC and without any court oversight. The only court oversight would come after a site has been blocked. Now, even if you think piracy should be stopped, this is not the way to do it. This will just create this never-ending game of whack-a-mole, where every time a site that contains pirated material is blocked, a new one will just pop right back up in its place. So, it's not a solution to the problem that they actually want to fix. And on top of that, this is just a slippery slope to maybe blocking more websites that these massive corporations feel could threaten them, whether it be right-wing or left-wing organizations. And it could even extend to the voices of unions. And if you think I'm exaggerating, well, it's already happened. In 2005, Canadian ISP TELUS cut subscriber access to a pro-union website. The BC-based communications company was in a bitter fight with unionized employees and blocked its internet subscribers from accessing a website supporting striking union members. At the time, TELUS subscribers couldn't get into Voices for Change, which was a community website run by and for telecommunications union members. Now, TELUS eventually backed off and the issue was resolved, but this is what we open ourselves up to when we start allowing ISPs to block websites. There really is no end to what could potentially be blocked. Now, Canada Land got a response from government spokesperson Carl Sasseville, who appears to reiterate the Canadian government's dedication to net neutrality. Our government supports an open internet where Canadians have the ability to access the content of their choice in accordance to Canadian laws. Net neutrality is a critical issue of our time, much like freedom of the press and freedom of expression that came before it. That's why our government has a strong net neutrality framework in place through the CRTC. So the response from the government sounds encouraging, but at the same time, Bell and this coalition of companies haven't yet sent their proposal to the CRTC. So we're going to have to wait and see how the CRT responds once they actually receive the proposal. Now, Michael Geist, the law professor and internet policy expert that I referenced in a quote earlier, made a great point in this piece. Ultimately, Geist says what undid the scourge of music piracy wasn't blocking people from accessing piracy sites, but rather the introduction of streaming services that people were willing to pay for. If there is a piracy problem, it is addressed far more effectively by good business models that offer up competitive services that people want to buy. And that really gets to the heart of the issue here, our options as Canadians. Now, if you're an American, you have no idea what Canadians have to deal with when it comes to streaming services. So, for example, Netflix in Canada. While our selection has gotten better, the selection is still different and offers less than what Americans have. Or Amazon streaming is even worse. And the only reason I know that is because I have a free month of Amazon Prime. And it's practically a wasteland in terms of the options available to Canadians on video streaming there. Now, Hulu. Canadians don't have ability to get Hulu Plus. Or YouTube TV is another one that we don't have access to. But the worst of all is HBO. So while Americans can get HBO Now, which allows them to pay just $15 a month and stream HBO whenever they want, Canadians, the only way to get HBO is through a cable package. So you have to be paying at least $45 a month to get a basic cable package, and that doesn't even include the PVR rental. But then on top of that, you have to pay an extra $20 a month to get HBO. So we're talking, compared to the $15 that Americans have to pay per month, Canadians have to pay at least $60, if not more, a month to be able to access HBO. Now, that is why Canada has a piracy problem, because we don't have as good of options as Americans have. So the only real way to address the piracy issue is by resolving those issues, by giving Canadians the same amount of access to a similar catalog that Americans have. Now, there are all these other issues that underlie this and explain why Canadians don't have as much options when it comes to streaming services. And it gets into copyright issues and Canadian content regulations. But the bottom line is, doesn't matter. The only way to end piracy is by giving Canadians better options.